What's up, people? How are you doing today? Today is Wednesday, and it's late. It's 3:16. It's a fly on my fucking leg. Housefly. It is the 2nd. Hope your day's going well. I had a decent day so far. I spent it with my mother. We had a nice visit. She cut my hair. My hair was in dire need of a trim, and it's a lot better now. Thank you, Mom, for that. Yeah. So let's jump in. Last session we were working on reviewing all objects, determine if they're shared. And we did almost an hour. We'll just call that an hour yesterday. And we're probably not going to get much more today. But let's go ahead and pick up where we left off, which was line 23 in things to do. So let's go there. So we're reviewing input text final, okay, to see if we need a lock for it. So let's do input text final, Control Shift F, and back is bothering me pretty bad. I got an x-ray done. I got they did not an adjustment, but like it's called traction, where they like push on your back, and made my legs like do this number here with this little machine. And then I got a massage immediately after at the same place, which was really an amazing massage. Did it actually help my back? I don't know. It hurts like a bitch if I'm honest. Little piece of time in like 2 weeks. Like, well, I haven't taken a pain pill in a long time at all. I don't like taking them, but I took a little piece of one today for the first time in a very long time. But my back, this lower back pain's been like 2 weeks now, and I'm just like, man, I'm tired of like it's putting me in a really bad mood just being in pain. So I was like, I'm gonna take a little piece of my pain pill, maybe put me in a little bit of a better mood, so I'm just not like constantly thinking of, oh man, my back hurts really bad. Anyway, so we're looking at if event type is blah blah blah. So this is an event handler, that's what's important, which runs on the client side. So it is modified on the client side, and it's transferred because we pasted in only the transferred attributes, which means it would be transferred to the server side, which means client threads on server side will handle it. And if it's also handled by the main thread on the server side, that means it needs a lock. So we handle it I mean, this is, man, I tell you what. So like, realistically, looking at this, we set this, and the only time we use this, the only time we actually use input text final is for player enter name. But the time that it is handled on the client side versus the time where it's handled on the server side is actually very close to one another, because it's at a certain part of the game, they create the input text final, and then it's transferred, and then the server side checks the input text final. So the point in time is very close together, which does imply a risk for a race condition. So despite the fact that the frequency of occurrence is literally just like once, it's just this one little section of the game, despite that, we technically would need a lock on it. Yep. So we already got the answer to that one. That was easy. So we'll just put verified shared and need to implement lock. And I want to make sure I put all this in the notes. Now let's check the next one, which is multiple choice active. Whoops. Alright, so let's multiple choice active. This is multiple choice function. So this is gonna be, yeah, this function is gonna be run very often on the main thread on server side. So okay, so we do modify it on via event handler, which is client side, and it is transferred. So therefore it's going to need a lock, because this is whenever player has to choose from multiple card meld options and the option to not use any card at all by clicking a multiple choice text rect. This will change the multiple. So whenever they make their choice, it's changed back to false through the event handler, and that would be closely related to the time at which it is changed on the server side and the main thread. So again, frequency is not, it may be there, but high frequency of high occurrence may be there, but the time span is very short between accessing the two, so it is a risk. So we do need to create a lock, and we actually also modify it again in a different scenario. This is a mouse button down and multiple choice active, and this is if mouse button down and click card active. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so we definitely do need a lock. We do need a lock. Maybe we don't need one realistically, but as far as safety goes, we need it. So we'll do it. Yep, okay. And multiple choice active. Because normally we would use the multiple choice function to set multiple choice active. I don't really think to check that, but we should. If we were still wondering if it did need to be locked, we would need to check multiple choice. Where is it? Multiple choice function. There we go. So yeah, multiple choice function is going to be used a lot. So let's look that up. And yeah, you can see all these boom, 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 boom. Yeah, it's a bunch of times. So about 15. Some of that 20 actually. So yeah, we do need a lock verified. Is indeed a shared object. So lock. Alright, multiple choice text 1. Let's check that. Alright. Choice text. Client. Da, 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 da. Alright, multiple choice text 1 is modified through multiple choice function, so we'll need to check that. Multiple choice function. Did we not? Is that the same one we just looked up? It's the same thing we just looked up, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Yep. Yeah, so this one's used heavily on the main thread. Now, as far as it being used client side, let's figure that out. Okay, so this is an event handler. There we go. So yeah, now we're in event handler, and let me check to make sure. I might need to restart some of my. I don't have to restart any of them. Okay, so let's keep going. So this is an event handler, and it is modified, and since it's modified and transferred, that means we will need to lock it since it's handled on the main thread and the client thread as well. So we need a lock for that. And this guy's I wonder how many bugs that this causes, the thing that I'm doing right now. Cause what was the main bug, the main playthrough bug that we were dealing with was the highlight card. It was a highlight card bug where whenever we went to go make the play, if you remember, on the second attempt, it would not allow us to click like the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth card for whatever reason, and it was pretty consistent. I wonder if not having a lock had anything to do with that. But that one might be a hard bug because it was so consistent. You know what I mean? It happened like literally every time. I don't think it ever didn't happen. And what I'm doing here would fix intermittent bugs. It's not gonna fix hard bugs. This is gonna fix like what I would call soft bugs. I don't know if that's a real term, but intermittent bugs. They happen every now and then. And what's this in? This is in multiple choice text 2. Alright, move past this. Okay, so now we're in event handler. Alright, so event handler, yep, we set it in event handler, and then this draw window main. No, that's a different thing. Wait, is this not used? On the server side? Well, it's gotta be, right? Yeah, through the multiple choice function. Yep. Okay. So yeah, we definitely need a lock for it. I figured that it would be since it's just the 2 to the 1, but always good to triple check. So let's look for progression text. Let's see what we got going on here. we have, okay, so this is actually, this is transferred. Yeah, so this counts, and this is client side, right? Yep, this is client side, and it does count. And because that is transferred, isn't it? Is it transferred? It should be. Yeah, because it would trigger the, yep, it would trigger the progression text setter, which triggers data transfer function, which triggers custom change change attribute list appendage, which triggers client side data transfer, which must be received by a client thread on the server side. So then we keep going here. I just want to verify that I did. Okay, yeah. Progression text does trigger data transfer function. Of course it does. We know it works. That was a stupid question. So progression text is okay. Yep, and we do transfer it in the proper scenario, and we don't transfer it in the proper scenario. I just want to triple check that logic while we were here looking at it. And yeah, so it is modified here, way up in client, right here on the client side, even though that's only one place, but it's where else is it modified? So this is in progression text assign function. Oh, you know what? Just thinking about something. Whenever we, okay, so but we should already have that figured out. So my concern was related, but it's not directly related, was whenever we transfer a progression text, let's say we change progression text server side main thread, then client one thread picks up the change, transfers it over to client side. Client side picks it up, and then whenever it goes to change that function, change that attribute, it's going to do so as if it was called from dir check, so that it wouldn't then transfer it again when we change that data on the client side, if that makes sense, because the change of the attribute triggers the transfer, unless the change of the attribute is derived from a data transfer. In that case, the data would be in the format of a tuple, wherein the setter for the progression text calculated property would check right here if type of val is equal to tuple. In that case, we know it was through data transfer, so it's not gonna call the data transfer function. But my concern is, if there's secondary and tertiary attributes that are changed via the setter, wouldn't those attributes get set? Wouldn't those attributes get set and transferred? Like, for instance, one that I just noticed, I don't think I'm wrong here, was the one we were just working with. Let's go back real quick. Let's look at multiple choice text 1. So let's go here, because I noticed some overlap here. We have Why did it skip all this? Did I do that? I don't know how. Anyway, so let's go through to that function, the multiple choice function. Alright, right here. So I noticed here we transfer multiple choice text 1, but we also transfer multiple choice active. So let me make sure. Let me run through this little experiment and see if my concern is valid. I might be wrong here. So if we run server side multiple choice function, it's gonna change multiple choice text 1 to string 1. Since that data gets transferred, that means it has a setter, right? This means this has a setter. It's a prop, yeah. So if we put property, that means it's a calculated property. So it should have a setter. And since we do have the internal use underscore associated with the namespace, we know it is a setter. Yeah. So here we have the setter. Now, that means whenever we run this function up here, wherever it is, right here. So whenever we change this multiple choice text to string 1, it's going to trigger the data transfer. So it's going to trigger the setter. The setter is going to trigger the data transfer, and then that's going to get transferred over. That's going to get received client side. It's going to assign this multiple choice text, and that is going to not trigger a data transfer because it should be received in a it should be transferred or applied using the tuple format. So in the setter we do have this check for type of val equal to tuple, which would ensure that double data transfer doesn't occur. Alright, so yeah, I'm pretty sure we're safe here actually. And then we have multiple choice active set to true, which would trigger that setter's data transfer, and then client receives it, and it should be in the proper format through its setter, just like we checked the other one. This one should be safe as well. And then yeah, that's safe. So in this scenario we are safe, but my concern is my concern was that this function was gonna like derivatively set one attribute that's transferred and then derivatively set another attribute that was transferred, which would mean we would transfer it once, and whenever it gets applied on the client side, the first attribute would be safe, but the derivative one would not have would not be applied in a tuple format, which means it would get recursively transferred back over. So I wonder if there's any place where we do that. So that comes down to us having reviewed in the past um, the sections of code where we are that really depends on if we've reviewed our code thoroughly, namely the attributes that we transfer. So whenever we transfer, choose which attributes are transferred, we're supposed to rule out any derivative attributes. And that was my concern here. But I shouldn't be concerned here because this is a function. The function doesn't get called on the client side. The function gets called on the server side, and then the attributes are individually, not derivatively set. So we're safe here. But if we were to have two derivatively set attributes that were also both transferred, then we would have a problem. So we need to keep an eye out for that. So I was just trying to be safe there. Progression text, let's go back to that. Now concerning what I was just talking about, do I need to really go through and review like the entire project? Do I need to go through and check every... This would basically pertain to calculated properties, because calculated properties derivatively set other attributes. I'm pretty sure we already did that. Like, that's something that's already been done. That's why we have this list of attributes right here. All these attributes are the ones that are transferred. Anything that's derivative shouldn't be transferred. So we shouldn't have this problem. If I did what I was supposed to do, if I did it correctly, we should be safe. So I'm going to assume I did it correctly and move on. Okay. So back to progression text. So we have progression text set on through progression text assign function, which is used heavily on the server side. So you go in here. We have progression text the setter. Don't need to worry about that, obviously. That's an attribute. That's a property right there, boy. Yikes. Stay away from that. So then we okay, so then we set it on progression a bunch. And then we set it on server. No, that's so I don't even know. Damn, I thought for sure that would need a lock, but I'm like, I don't think we actually need a lock for this. Because it doesn't meet the... Oh yeah, it does. Only this one instance. In one instance. Damn. That means... Well, doesn't that mean that doesn't mean we have to apply the lock every time we use progression text? Because that would be like really dumb, wouldn't it? Well, we could put it in the setter. Couldn't we just put it in the setter? yeah, we could put the lock in the setter, right? Because when we set the attribute of a calculated property with a setter, it's actually like calling a function. It just looks different. So it's gonna actually call the setter function, and it's gonna pass the value that you set it equal to as like an argument to that function. If we were to put the lock acquisition at the beginning of that function, we would implement the lock one time. We wouldn't have to implement it a bunch of places, and that would cover us for all instances of whenever we modify progression text. Make sense? Now, as far as like performance wasted, because we really only need to use it at the very beginning, since we really only need it at the very beginning stage, like, we really don't set progression. No, we do. We set progression text a lot, actually. Let me triple check something. I feel like I'm overlooking something. I feel like it's gotta be changed more often on the client side than just that one place. There's no way. Ah, hold up. There we go, okay. Alright, from here. Okay, these are different objects. Different objects. Different objects. Okay, that's server side. And then this is so text prog text assign function. It sets it. Okay, so we need to look up where this function is used. Let's see. Alright. So if prog text assign function is used client side, that would. It's used a lot on the server side. It is literally never used on the client side. It's just this one place. So do we need the lock? Yeah, actually we do need the lock. But this would only happen like I would hate to just use the lock every time because of the overhead associated with it, with acquiring a lock. if I could just make it to where we only acquire the lock for the very earliest stages of the game, that would actually be like feasible. That would be preferred. So we have right here, game object, progression text, what is your name? This would be one place where we would want to use the lock because it's closely connected to that client side change. Well, actually, we would want to use it. We would want to use it. We would want to use it on the client thread when we received it. So we would not only need to use it on the main thread, like here, but we would also need to use it on the client thread when we receive it. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think it's not a big deal. I think I will just I'm just gonna be honest though, 99% of the time we don't need the lock. The only time we need the lock would be at the very beginning part of the game. So like, for instance, this one where we enter our name, we would need it in dir check, but only in certain instances. Like, honestly though, if we had to check that logic every time, that would be just like applying the lock every time. It would cost the same amount of overhead. Like, assuming that lock acquisition versus okay, let's test it real quick. I didn't want to do this, man. I didn't want to do this. Alright, so we have exec eval versus if elif, so we have time it okay, so that's the format. So we're gonna copy this test. We'll go to the bottom and scroll up to the next one. Alright. You know what I can do? So I don't have to do this anymore. I'll just put next. So then whenever I come here, I can just search next and it'll bring me to the next test segment. See how clever is? Alright, so we're gonna import time it, and we're testing, I already forgot what I'm testing. That means I'm not awake. That means I'm sleepy. We're testing the speed of lock acquisition. So we also need to import threading, and then why is this? Because we're not using it. So let's say L equals threading dot lock. And now, we just call this lock. We're gonna print time.it, and this doesn't need to be multi-line. well, we can do multi-line. We can do lock.acquire and then lock.release. So release the lock, and then we're gonna globals equals globals, which will import the lock variable, the lock object, and then we have number, which equals 10,000, and that's how many times it's going to run the code snippet, and then it's going to get an average. And then we want to, so the alternative, one option is we always acquire and release the lock no matter what when we use progression text. The other option would be we only acquire the lock under certain conditions, which would mean every time we modified progression text, we would well, there is a third option where we would only acquire the lock on the main thread, but that's even more like complicated. So we're not gonna do that. It's not that important. You're talking about milliseconds here. Anyway, so then the second option would be to check if we're at the early stage of the game every time we set progression text. So we're basically comparing the performance of lock acquisition and releasing against the speed of if game at early stage is equal to true, and then else we'll just do pass. So this is the code we want to run. If else pass, we have to put something here. We just put pass, and there we go. So we're gonna check the speed of if else against lock acquire, lock release to see which one is faster. So now we can do Control F5. Okay, so we got a name error. Next is not defined. Okay, well, just comment that out. There we go. Let's try this again. It still worked though. But okay, so we get 0.0015 versus 0.0003. So you're looking at a 10th, 100th, 1000th of a second against a 10,000th of a second, which is a big difference. But is it a real difference? Like, I don't know. I don't think it's a real difference. Like, is it a difference worth being concerned about? Not really. It's about 0.4 to 0.04 to 0.15. That's like, it's 3 times faster. Not a big difference. Yeah. So lock acquisition takes about 1,000th of a second, and then that's the lock and the release. And then an if elif takes a 3 or 4 10,000ths of a second. relatively large difference between the two, but a real world scenario, it's really not that like big of a deal. So this this is only gonna affect over the course of the game maybe a half of a second. Yeah, so we're good. So we're gonna just do it every time, and that's actually the easiest way to do it. It's the most simple. So let's put below section tests performance of lock acquisition and release. Final result 0.00150. Very fast. And then we have the test performance of if and else. Final result is 0.000. We'll just put 4, which is extremely fast. So they're both fast, very fast. And we'll just put lock, acquire, and release versus if else. Reminder that if else is super fast and lock acquire and lock release is almost as fast. Yep. So there we go. Zero, zero, 1, 5. Yep. Yeah, very fast. Okay, so it's good to have that in the node. Do we really need it? Probably not, but now we know. So we're gonna go back over here. We can exit out of that. We'll go back to Control Shift F on progression text equals. And since we do have this one place where we do set it on the client side, which means it's transferred to the server side is going to apply it using the client thread data transfer, which means it is a shared object. Technically, we're going to create in the so that every time the object will use the lock. So we'll put verified shared here, and then we'll also put need to implement a lock, and then we'll put I'll put this in a separate thing. Well, I'll put this down here. Well, yeah, I'll put it separately just in case I overlook it. Yeah, that's true. Ten more minutes till break. Alright. So let's go to the next one. Things to do, and we need to look for round end winter sound bool. Control Shift F. Okay, so this is progression. This is server side. All right. Yeah, we don't need it if that's the only place it's modified. It's only modified through progression, which is server side. That means we don't modify it on the client side. Now, if we were to modify it on the client side, that would be different. Yep, we don't need a lock for this one. Yep, we don't. All right, that one's done. Alright, selected choice. Let's check this one. Alright, so it's set in the event handler, which is client side, which means it's transferred, and then it's set on the server side through progression. Well, actually, hold up. So it's set through the event handler, which is client side, but then but if it's set on the client side, that means it's accessed on the, that means it's received through the client thread server side, which means if it's accessed main thread server side, even if it's not modified main thread server side, we still need a lock because it's accessed. It could be accessed at the same time the client thread is modifying it, which could tangle up the order of the operations. So this actually, even though it's not modified, at least so far on the server side, it still is at risk for a race condition. So yeah, we do need a lock for this one. So this one is verified shared. Alright, so let's look up skeleton clickable card list. So this is client. It checks it client side. Accesses, not modifies. Well, that's checking for the string. That's not even checking the actual object. Yeah, so skeleton clickable card list is, hold up now, it shouldn't. So this is gonna need a different namespace for me to check it. I'm gonna have to actually check the clickable card list, because let's see here, the clickable card list is modified. So the clickable card list is modified. Where exactly? Let's see. Alright, so here's the first access to it. This client side dir check. Well, no, this is dir check is server side and client side. Dir check is client side and server side. Okay. So we modify the clickable card list on through choose multiple cards, which is used on the damn, this is a little bit confusing to me. Okay, so skeleton is derivative of the actual, and we're searching for the skeleton to be whether or not it's at risk of erase condition. Clickable card list, the first time that it's modified, it's done through, well, the first time it's accessed is in dir check, which would be used client side and server side, but server side client thread, and it's obviously going to be like a modified. If it's transferred, that means it's got to be modified. If it's modified, it's going to be modified either through the server side or the client side, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be modified through at least the server side. And then, but this isn't just an access on the client side. It doesn't, it's not a modification on the client side. So if it's not a modification on the client side, we would be safe. Okay, so that one is safe so far. Alright, so now we're in choose multiple cards. Choose multiple cards. So here's what I know. I know that we modify the clickable card list through server side, almost certainly. Server side is gonna trigger skeleton data transfer, which that means the main thread server side is gonna modify the is gonna modify the skeleton clickable card list, and that is going to cause the client thread to detect that and it's gonna need to access that attribute. Is that right though? Because if we have like yeah, actually, if we modified it server side, the data is going to get added to the changed attribute list. But the client thread doesn't actually need to access the actual attribute because the data gets added in a non-referential way. It gets added like in a way where the data itself is extracted from the attribute, passed to the change attribute list, so that when the client thread runs dir check for data transfer, it's not actually going to touch the skeleton attribute. It's only going to use the data it's already extracted from the skeleton attribute to transfer to the client side, which means that this would not necessitate a lock. Only if it's modified from the client side, that would necessitate a lock, because in that case, whenever it receives the data server side through client thread, it's gonna the attribute. But actually, for a skeleton attribute, it receives the skeleton data, but it doesn't actually apply it to the skeleton attribute. So I'm pretty sure, without even looking any further, we would be safe, because as I said, clicked card modification triggers skeleton data appendage to that skeleton attribute, which triggers appendage to the change attribute list, the extracted data, which triggers data transfer to the client side. Now, if the client side were to modify the skeleton or the non-skeleton, it would only modify the non-skeleton directly, then that would trigger data transfer through the skeleton format. The skeleton would be received server side through the client thread. That data is going to be checked regarding the attribute string for the skeleton attribute, but it's not going to actually access the skeleton attribute. It will access the clicked card attribute. So doesn't that mean then that if we're that just passes the buck? It passes the buck. We don't need to look at whether or not the skeleton is necessitates a lock, but whether the actual attribute, which is clickable card list, necessitates a lock. And I think it would necessitate a lock if it were transferred from the client side, because as long as the main thread and the client thread is competing if they both access the click card list, which they would, because if it's modified or accessed from the server-side main thread, and if it's modified from the client thread, receives it server-side client thread, it's going to modify the attribute through that thread, which would compete with the main thread. So we would actually need a lock for clickable card list, not for skeleton clickable card list. Is that right? Pretty sure that's right. Okay, so I think what we're doing here is actually more important than I originally thought. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is actually really important, and I think it's actually good to go through this slowly like I am and really think it through. So what I need to do now, since I went through that thought experiment, I need to see if it actually is modified through the client side, right? Yeah. So we're gonna put choose multiple cards. I'll put stopped here, and when we come back from break, we're gonna check whether or not it is modified on the client side. If it's not, we can just skip this, but you can see how talking through things can really help you figure it out, because I really didn't understand that until I talked myself through it. It's a lot of like this to that, that to this, this to that, you know. That's what programming ends up being. It's just a lot of like connections, dots and lines, and it's hard to keep track of them. You just have to go slow and talk through it. So I'm gonna take my break now. It's well past my break time, so I'm gonna be back in like 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, we're back. Me, myself, and I. All of us, we're back. I got a fresh pack of gum here. Gotta have the gum. Alright, let's smash another hour. And I'll set my timer, which I forgot to set. We'll just set it to 65 minutes. Alright, 67, close enough. Alright, where were we? We were looking, okay, clickable card list, right, okay, so. We would need a lock if it's modified on the client side. So we're gonna check to see if choose multiple cards is See, remember what I was talking about earlier about derivative attribute setting? Transferred attribute? This is one of those instances that I was talking about. Choose multiple cards is transferred. Choose multiple cards is why do we have this changed from dirt check? What is this now? Oh, we pass that as an argument to. Okay. Gotcha. So this is strictly for having the change from your check move, or okay, this is one of those. Oh, I forgot to turn my light back on. This is one of those instances where we are doing some complicated shit. This is like an intricate web right here. This is a delicate construct. Okay. So when we set choose multiple cards, which is transferred, we check to see, let's just go through this line by line. Type of val is equal to tuple, change from dirt check bool is equal to true. Okay, I know, I remember now, it's coming back to me. So the change from dirt check bool was added in to address this concern I was just talking about derivative transferred attribute setting. And this is to ensure that if this multiple cards attribute was bool to true, derivative attributes setter not be transferred. So we already, at least for this, and I'm hoping I did for all the instances, it looks like I did a review of this. This is a verification of that this bool being passed to clickable card list methods is to ensure that the clickable card list and clicked cards list data would not be errantly double transferred. So that is good. And we also added it in for self click card active as well, which is another transferred attribute. Okay, yeah, and so in the case that the bool is true, we set it as a tuple, which would bypass the data transfer, which is correct. Okay, so what does that mean for what we're looking at right now? We're actually looking at, originally was clickable card list. So The question was, does choose multiple cards triggers clickable card list modification? Where is choose multiple cards executed? Is it modified through the is it modified on the client side? If it's modified on the client side, so let's just remember clickable card list, choose multiple cards, but we'll go back to clickable card list. So choose multiple cards. Is it changed on the client side? Let's do Control Shift F and find out. Alright, so choose multiple cards. I'm asleep. Go back and look at it again. Equal to, equal to, equal to, equal to, equal. Okay, so here we go. This is in play 2, so this is progression. Yes. Alright, so it is not modified on the client side. Choose multiple cards is not. But why do we show that it's verified shared if we just said it's not shared? I'm confused. Oh, I know why. Man, I hate that, bro. I hate when I didn't get it right the first time. Hold on, don't. Let me just be sure. I might have got it right. Let's see. Okay. So we check it in event handler, which is client side. But we don't modify it. And if we don't modify it, then we don't need to transfer it. Transfer. It's only if we transfer it. It's not if we modify it client side. If we access it client side, that's fine. There we go. We do set it. Yep, I was right. I was right the first time. Cool. Yeah. Just that one place. Right there. Okay. That's all I needed. Alright, so wait a second. Okay, well that means if choose multiple cards is set through event handler. Thought you would never see me again, did you? You thought that you would never see me again. So then we which one is clickable card list. So since choose multiple cards is modified on the client side, and since Yep. Choose multiple cards, modified client side, and since choose multiple cards, I'll get there. So this is dirt check access. There we go. And since choose multiple cards modifies clickable card list derivatively, that means that it is set on the client side. So as long as it is, that means it's going to be accessed, it's going to be modified on the server side client thread. The question then is it going to be accessed on the main thread? So that's the last question. Is clickable card list accessed on the main thread? So let's go back to the top and assess that. So this right here is actually going to be through the client thread, dirt check. So right now we only have modification on client side and access on the client thread. We now need access on the main thread. And this is choose multiple. Well, if choose multiple cards, there we go. That's all I needed. There we go. That's all I had to do. That took way longer than I wanted it, but we were thorough. Being thorough means taking fucking 15 minutes when you could have took 3 minutes. But now I know I did it right. I didn't guess. You know what I mean? So skeleton, clickable card list, verified share, need to implement lock. But let's copy this, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little note right here. Skeleton, clickable card list, skeleton, clickable card list, implement lock for actual non-skeleton version, because is modified, because skeleton isn't in need of lock. Actual is. Alright, so next is gonna be skeleton clicked card. So let's do that. So this is another case where we don't need to look at the skeleton, we need to look at the actual. So here we have access on the, well, access and modification on the at the very least through dirt check, which is either client thread or client side. So this is actually a this is where we set it through dirt check. And we're looking for click card, not click cards list. Okay, so there we go. We have client side modification, and since we have client side modification, that means we have transfer, and that means we have main client thread access and modification. So all we need is main thread access or modification. So let's see if we can find main thread access or modification. So that would be progression. Yep, we have access right there. And this fucking housefly, bro. It's flew on my head, dog. He's flew on my leg, flew on my head. He's just like, why are you landing on me? Just explain to me why. He's not doing anything. He's just fucking landing on me. What? What are you doing? Thinking about eating off of me? Eating off of me? Like, I'm not a buffet, my dude. What are you gonna eat? I don't have just food sitting on me. Okay. So we're good. Alright. So this does need a lock. Click card. Verified. Need to lock. Verified shared. And this is going to be the same thing. We don't need to modify the... Just copy it. Oh, that little piece of pain pill starting to wear off. My back is hurting again. I don't know, guys. It's just not good. It's just not good, bro. It is hurting, bro. Like, something's bad. Something's wrong. Okay, we're gonna put the same exact note here. Implement lock for actual, non-skeleton version. Because skeleton is needed lock. Actual is. Alright. Oh, we're almost done. Holy shit. So skeleton click card. Now we do skeleton click cards list. Oh, now I'm tripping. This motherfucker. This fly landed on my goddamn armpit. Like, open the door for 10 seconds. It's two of the biggest houseflies I've ever seen in my life. Just like, we've been waiting for you to open this door, dude. Alright, so skeleton click to cards list. This is gonna be almost certainly the same as skeleton clickable card list, because they're like related to each other. They're like cousins or brothers and sisters. And this is gonna be the case where we're gonna want to look for the non-skeleton version. So we're just gonna, and I'm just gonna zoom out for a second. Let me make sure what I'm doing is not a waste of time. I already this is something you frequently have to do when you're programming, just to verify that you're not zoomed in too close, you know? Let's zoom out for a second. So we're creating a list of attributes class that risk race conditions from the client thread, and going through each attribute to see if it simultaneously accessed. They are. Then I'm gonna lock to make sure we're not accessing or modifying in the wrong order, which will cause corrupt data. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is actually really important and something that I should have done a while back. So yeah, we're good. We need to do this. Phone says it's time to stop. Not yet though. We're gonna go a little further. Alright, so clicked cards list. Here we go. Card list. So there's an access through dir check. It's gonna be the same thing as the clickable. Let's go to the card list. Alright, so this is in choose multiple cards, and we know choose multiple cards is, because I remember, choose multiple cards is executed client side. So that means this is modified client side. So all we need now is proof that it is accessed or modified on the main thread. There it is. Yep. Alright. That's all we need. So it does need a lot. Last one, text input active. Text input active is equal to true. That's a check. We need modification. There's modification client side. Now we need access main thread or modification. There we go. That's all we needed. Yep. We already do text input active. Or no, that was progression text, I think, and text input active was like next to it. So yep. So verified shared. That one was easy. That was the easiest one, I think. Okay, so we did it, and yeah, I just want to triple check. Go to game, go to the top. We're gonna make sure these are all the transferred adders. So we have choose multiple cards, text input active. How many? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There's 15. Now let's go to things to do and count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122 15. And the only one that was not shared was round and winter sound. Ooh. Let me just triple check that one since it's the odd man out. Because having a lock when you don't need a lock is not really a big deal. Not having a lock when you need a lock is a big deal, right? So we set it in progression, but we don't set it. We don't set it client side, do we? Yeah, we don't set it client side. I don't think we do. Yeah, this is the actual setter, so we don't need to worry about that. This is, yeah, we don't. Yeah, we don't. Yeah, I was right. Cool. Alright, so we're done with that task. So I'll just put this in Debugging just to make myself feel good. So 316 to 505. We finished reviewing all game attributes to determine whether they are shared. SSLX. And then from 505 to SX, we begin implementation. That's my word. Implementation. Is not a word. Begin implementation of game attribute locks. Game attribute locks. Alright. So it's hotter than a motherfucker in this room. It's really hot in here. Alright. So we began implementation of game attribute locks. Alright, so let's do that. So we're gonna go to things to do. We're gonna go one by one here. So choose multiple cards. Let's implement lock for that. So since I think pretty much every single one of these is a property which has a setter, we can just use the lock through the setter. So what we'll do is okay, so the actual lock itself, that's going to be a question. Where do we create the locks? Do we create the associated locks with their associated objects, or do we create the locks in a place for locks, like, which I would call the change attribute list file, which is where we have other locks. The question, I'm not really sure, honestly. Let me think about this. So if we were to create the locks in the location where the actual associated attributes are defined, that would seem right. That would seem like right. Like, here's the attribute and here's its lock. They stay together. Now, the only question is, would that cause import issues? Like what? Because we need the lock on the we need the lock everywhere the attribute's accessed or modified. So if the lock is, let's just say in this case, it would be created for this option in the game file. It would just be a game attribute called the choose multiple cards lock. And then from that point, we would use the lock. Well, I don't think there would be an import issue, would there? Because there's not an import issue with the actual attribute, and it's going to go everywhere the actual attribute goes. So if the actual attribute has no import issue, then we wouldn't have an import issue with the lock, right? I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense. Yeah, that would be fine, because client imports game and stuff anyway, and I just want to make sure if we do it for this one, we would want to do it for all of them, right? Because that would be like the convention, that would be the norm, and we want to make sure that we are adhering to, you know, consistent standard here. So if we implemented choose multiple cards alongside its associated choose multiple card attribute, the lock that is, then we would want to do the same thing for the rest of them. So for click card active, I mean, for all of these, as long as the lock goes where the attribute goes, and it doesn't go like any weird place, which I'm trying to think of, like what weird place would it go? It wouldn't go anywhere where the attribute doesn't go. Why would it? So if the attribute is safe to go there without any circular import issue, then it should make the case that it would also be safe to use the blocks in the same place without any such issue. So I think we're safe on that. Talk through it. I'm confident in that decision. So we'll implement the lock alongside its associated attribute. So we do need to make sure we add these to the transferred or non-transferred game attributes, and we're not going to need to transfer the locks. So these will automatically go in the non-transferred game attributes. So we actually don't have a list of the non-transferred. We only have a list of the transferred ones. So we don't need to add anything regarding that. We'll just go to... Now this right here, for these instances, this is where we would have to dynamically use the lock. We would have to dynamically assign the lock in this case. So let's see, if attr name string is in client 2, and then we say if get attr object time plug that equals false. So wait, this is, so We don't apply the data if the object locally is later than the incoming modification. Okay. And then we check to see if apply data is equal to true. In that case, we check if has adder is instance, get adder is instance object, blah 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 blah. Then we set the adder. Okay, so this is the case right here that I was referring to earlier. So we have else. So we have this else, and this is accounts for all other adder name string instances. So this accounts for a large group of attributes. So this else clause is gonna determine, or rather handle, a bunch of different attributes, which means we needing locks for some of these attributes, if not all of them, will need to, what we could do is we could create a dictionary where the adder name string is attached to the associated lock, and that would be how we would assign the lock. So what we'll do is find the proper spot for this. So we have if adder name string is in time 2 if true. We're not worried about that. Okay. So we want to put it where? We want to put it only when we're actually gonna modify the associated. Well, no, that's not true. We need the lock whenever we get the attribute. Ah, yeah. Well, no, that's not true, because we're getting the attribute of the timestamp, not the actual attribute. See, so we don't need it there. We would need it in the right here. If applied data is true, because that's where we actually access the attribute that we're talking about. So that would be here, right? Has adder. Well, no. If attribute is not a proper, we can directly set the attribute without worrying about circular sends. Oh, I see. Okay, so yeah, so basically we would need it here before this line and before this line. We could just put it in one place right here, but we don't really want to acquire the lock if we don't need to acquire the lock. And I don't think we would need the lock for this if, because this is checking to see if the game object has the attribute. And the game object attribute isn't the same thing as the class instance attribute, right? I don't know. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. I don't think it is true. So let's go right here and let's ask Chibbity Jibbity. Chibbity Jibbity. Alright. my unfeathered friend, is a genius. Okay, let's ask him. So Python, um, is a class attribute CLS dot X CLS X equals, well, it depends, because if it's a mutable or immutable. So in this case, it's a immutable object because it's a boolean. Choose multiple cards is a boolean. So then we would say it's equal true. Okay. If Python or using Python is a class attribute such as CLS X equals true, considered the same object as the instance object C dot X, C being an instance of CLS. Class attributes and attributes can interact in a way that sometimes leads to confusion. When you define a class attribute like CLS X equals true, this attribute is shared among all instances of the class. If you access it from an instance like object X, you are accessing the class attribute, assuming that the instance does not have an instance attribute named X. True. Yeah. That's actually like kind of dumb, isn't it? Yeah, that was a stupid question. So obviously they would be different because object X, if you reassign it, and so wait a second, hold up a little. Alright. If CLS doesn't have a attribute dot X, but C does is or has adder CLS X return true? No, has adder CLS X will return false if the class CLS does not have an attribute X. Has adder function checks for attributes directly on the object you pass it, in this case the class itself. CLS does not have an attribute X. If an instance of C of CLS has an attribute X, the attribute is not part of the class CLS, so has adder CLS X will still return false. Wait a second, man. Does that mean this code is bugged? Because, is that right though? I thought I checked this, man. I thought we were past this, bro. I'm back to wondering about the logic of this line again. Son of a bitch. I thought we fixed this, bro. I've been through this multiple times, man. Damn. So we're checking has adder. We don't need to worry about is instance. We're just worrying about has adder. Let's just test this real quick. So we're gonna go copy this. We're gonna go down to test reminders. We're gonna do next, and there we go. Let's paste that in. Has adder is instance object. So we're just gonna call class CLS. We're gonna do def __ init self and we're gonna say self dot x equals 1. Okay, now we're gonna do c equals cls, if I can type, maybe. Then we're gonna do if has adder cls, and then x, or actually, you know, we can do even better. We can just say print has adders, bam. So it's false. Why would I have thought? Why would I have thought? Why would I have thought that would have worked? I don't understand. Why did I move forward with this code in the past? So you're telling me that after all this time, that code was bad? No way. No way, dude. Did I close the file? What file? It was not this file. It was client. There we go. Has adder is instance object, and the is instance object here is gonna be. See this, bro? I'm getting too old for this, making these kind of mistakes, dude. I'm getting too old to make these kind of mistakes, bro. So the is instance object, yes, it's the class object, dude. And if we create this object, I mean, yeah, instance attributes rather, defined in the initializer, but they're not defined at the class level, which none of these are. These are all instance attributes. None of those are class attributes, right? Isn't that right? Yeah. I mean, I know, well, let's just look. I know they're not. I know they're sort of definite, definitely. And oh god, we have so many in there. You just alright, I know what to do to make this easier. We'll do underscore x. Alright. Oh, I think I might know. Let's see def x, and we need to put property decorator, so we put add property, and then def x. Does it take self? Or doesn't it? And we'll just put return self dot underscore x, right? And then we do def x, and it takes self val. We then would say val equals, let's say 2, and then we'll return, or rather say self dot underscore x equals val. Okay, I think that's right. So now if we do the same thing, will it say it has the attribute now? Okay, now it says it has the attribute. So if the attribute is a property not set within the initializer, it will show that the class object does indeed possess that attribute. But what about this? Does C have the X attribute? And it does. Okay, so calculated properties or calculated attributes, properties in other words, are set at the indentation level of class attributes. They are not set inside of the initializer, which sets them as instance attributes, which means these are not instance attributes. Well, actually, they are considered instance attributes. They are also considered class attributes. But if we were to check to see if CLS has underscore X, which only exists inside the initializer, we get false. But if we check C, does it have underscore X? Of course it does. But if we do CLS, does it have X, which is a calculator property, it does show true. And then if we do C, does it have X, it will also show true as well. So yeah, we have an issue this code. Not we have an issue, and this is one I need to record. So we'll put class instant adder versus instance adder, and what is the term I'm looking for? Class adder versus adder what? Has adder return val. Yeah, that's close enough. 10 to 24, and we're gonna put reminder that calculated properties are considered both class adders and instance adders. Adders defined only inside init are only considered instance adders. Yeah, that's true. Alright, so this is a fucked vacation. I don't even get to go skate. So my back's fucked up. Pissing me off. Oh man. Got it. Anyway. God damn it. Alright. So, we need to fix this code. It's bad. It's bad code. We made a boo-boo. And I just got lucky finding that. I thought I had already reviewed that code, but I'm an idiot, so my review was not thorough. I see what I did. I checked class properties, and they're special. They're not like regular attributes. So in this case, when we run if hasAdder is instance object, adder name string, and is instance getAdder is instance object, da da da. So when we run this first part, the hasAdder is instance object adder name string. Is instance object adder name string. When that runs, for pretty much all these, well, if these are all properties, then we're good. But they're not. See, I even put calc prop. This is not a calc prop. These three are not calc props, so this is not gonna work. What we need to do is okay, man. I'm dumb, bro. Damn, I'm dumb. Well, not entirely dumb. I did learn something new, okay, but I just realized when we check this first clause here, the goal, I didn't realize the goal here, I have the if and the else. So if, I don't think I knew that though when I made this code. Like I don't think I really understood it completely, but it actually I think works. Even though I didn't understand it properly. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't think I did because I just felt like what I just learned was new to me. So in this case, if the has_adder of the isInstance object at the adder name string returns true, that means that actually means it is a calculated property, or that means it is a class attribute. Because if we go here and we do, let's just have a, we'll just say y equals 2. If we do print has_adder cls y, that should return true, and it does. So you know what, we'll leave both of these. I'll do like this, and cls x, and then we'll do a third one that says cls_x, and we can even do another one which does c x and then cy. See, I could make a class on this, bro. I think I'd be a good teacher. I've thought about that, teaching other people Python. I'm really good at Python. Well, I'm obviously not that good because I didn't know that. But anyway, I can dream, right? So basically, this first half of this first clause does, in essence, at least in this real world application, the attributes that it's going to deal with, it does the same thing as what this one does. So this is kind of overkill. We don't actually need to check this and this. We really could just check this. But since code is subject to change, and this is safer, and this will rule out if it's a class attribute, because we don't want to just, it doesn't have to just be a class attribute. It also has to be a property. So we do need the second clause in spirit, but not in reality. So let's just be clear here that this code is good to go. This code works because if it is a class attribute or a property, a class property which is also an instance property, then and it is an instance of a property, because we can't check this first because it would throw in an attribute error. We'll put that in this comment up here, which is smart of me to have done that. It will then set the attribute. Okay, so back to the topic at hand after all that. And then if we do else, which means it's not a class property, we know it's just a regular instance attribute. If it's just an instance attribute, then it will go to the else, and it will set it directly, because we don't have to worry about having to pass it in as a tuple, because the property data assignment requires us to pass it as a tuple to avoid circular data exchange. So back where we started, for this line right here, we need a lock. And what we need to do is we need to put if adder name string in, what are we going to call this? The if adder name string is in, I guess we could say is in the, what would we call the dictionary? We call the dictionary, so these are all game objects, right? We'll just call it for now the lock dict. The lock dict. A dict we need to create to a dict we need to create to in the lock dict we need to create as adder name string as key associated lock as val, then acquire lock prior to this line's execution. True that, true, very true. Okay, same thing here. If adder name string is in lock dict, a dict we need to create which has adder name string as fee associated lock as val, then acquire lock prior to the line's execution, and then make sure, well, we can just use with. Can use with context manager. With context manager. Yeah. Okay, and we're gonna stop there because I went a little over. We should be, yeah, a little over is a little over was a little of a understatement. Went a little over. We went a little over a little over. Went a lot of a little over. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna call it quits. We're gonna go put right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Stopped here. 10, 2, 24. Yeah, that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright. Now let's go to devlog and I'll put stopped. I knew I was forgetting something. At line number 318 and climb 5. Alright. Now we'll put the time, which is 5:42. Alright, so now we are going to stage commit and push our changes today. So we'll put 5:43 to 5:45, and let's put the time right here, 45, and that was 2 hours and 30 minutes almost exactly, so 2.5 hours almost to the minute. And then we'll go to our terminal. We are at the correct project directory, the root of the project that is. So we're going to do git branch to make sure we're on the right branch. We are on the secondary branch. So we're going to do git add dot to add everything. We can ignore those LF warnings. Git commit -m to commit with our commit message, which is going to start with double quotes. Paste in the devlog, double quotes to end it. Hit enter. That is going to commit our changes. We had 6 files changed, 107 insertions, and 10 deletions. And then we're going to do git push canasta secondary. So now we're going to push, and let's see. Okay, so we did push. All right, and it worked. Now what we need to do is we need to go to exit out of this. Exit. Let me just minimize this. We're gonna go to programming, projects. It goes in off the top. Go to the actual project. We're gonna copy. Now we're gonna back up. Go into the backup. Oops, made a mistake. We're gonna delete this. Now we're gonna paste in the new one, and then we're gonna go into text. We're gonna go into devlog. We're gonna go to the end and check the date 10/2. That's today's date, so we're good there. Then we're gonna go back out. We're gonna say 10/2/24, so it reflects the last time it was updated. Alright, and that's it. So now we have a local backup, and we push to our remote repository. Have a good day, and I will probably see you guys tomorrow, unless something happens and I won't be able to code. So have a good day.